Okay, guys, so today we are going to be talking about mapping. Okay, so we are going to see how to be able to use maps in Solidity as well as the double maps. All right, so with that being said, let's get straight right into it. So let's say we have a contract. Let's start by writing a contract. Let's write a contract and let's just name it my contract. Okay, and within this contract, so what's a map literally? A map literally has to do with a key value pair, okay? It works similarly to an array, but the thing is it works strictly with the key and the value, right? So to be able to define a map in Solidity, to use mappings in Solidity, what you can simply try to do is you can say mapping. You need to always use the mapping keyword. If you use mapping, let me increase my screen so we can see what's happening. Let me increase the size so we can be able to see what's happening here. Okay, I think I should take this back a little bit, and I think we can increase it now. No. Yeah, I think it's okay like this. All right, so to be able to use it, so what you have to do is you have to be able to like say mappings. Okay, let's say we want to map every address, okay, in Solidity. Let's say we want to map every address to a particular ID, right? Every address should actually have a particular amount of money attached to it, okay? So we give it the address value and we put the arrow function, all right, and we give it this address should be attached to a specific amount unit. Well, we are going to set this mapping to public. That means you can be able to access it within and out of the contract. And equally, we are going to give it a name such as balances, right? Now we are going to write a function that's going to be able to set the balance to each address, okay? So say function, I'll write a function and we can name it add balances. All right, and let's say it takes two parameters. It takes an address first. We can call it, let's call it underscore ATR. And the next one, it takes the amount, it takes units. Takes an amount of type units, okay? And yeah, we can set this to public. And since it's not going to be doing anything, we can leave it as such. And what's going to happen is now we want to be able to like set this address, okay? So what we are going to be doing right here is we're going to call the balances map, okay? We call balances, and we are going to use the array format to say balances at this address, okay? Since it's used the array format kind of pattern, so balances at underscore ATR, right? This should be equal to amount, right? So what this function does is it takes two parameters, the address and the amount, which wants to be attached to this particular address, and within the balances mapping, all right, it literally sets the address to have this specific amount attached to it. So that's what this function does, okay? This is for single mapping because like every address is going to be attached to a single amount, okay? Every address is going to have a single value attached to it. So that's what it does. So if you have to write another function, let's say get balances, okay? We write another function, I'll call it as a function. I say get balance, all right? And let's say it takes one parameter, let's say address. Let's give it underscore ATR, all right? And we can name this as public view returns, going to return the units, okay? So since it's going to be returning a unit, to be able to access the amount of this address, we can simply call balances again. We can just write it as such. We can even just say units, okay? Or let's say we can return it directly using the return statement. We can say return balances at the location of this specific address, okay? It's very important for us to know this. not this address, but rather underscore ADR. Yep. So by so doing, what's always going to happen is when we call the get balance function, what's going to be happening is it's going to move to the balances at the specific spot of address. Okay, it's going to get us the amount that's associated to the balances. Okay, it's going to return that value, right? So let's try to do this in effect. Let's try to deploy this contract. Let's first of all save the contract to ensure that we have no errors. Okay, we have no errors. Then let's deploy this contract, right? So here on the left side we have the contract, right? So to be able to deploy this contract, we can click on the deploy button. Let's click on deploy. Right down here, if I should push this up a little bit, you can see the deploy button. It shows that it has been deployed, right? So now, since we have this contract deployed, if we scroll down, this is my contract, right? And since we have the my contract here, okay. So remember we had two functions. We had the get balance function and the add balances function, okay. Let's assume we want to add a specific balance, right? So within the add balance function, if I take this down on the left side of the screen, if you can look at it, we have an address and we have an amount. So we need to actually input as parameters an address, okay, and we need to actually input an amount, right? So let's say I'm going to come right here and I'm going to like select this second address and I'm going to copy that address, okay, and I'm going to paste the address right here. I should paste it, and I'm going to actually set an amount of 200, okay. So after doing this, I'm going to transact, right? You can see, okay, down here the transaction went through, and if I should put this arrow down, we can literally see that this transaction was true, and we see that the unit amount, okay, was 200. So it's actually good, right? So we set the balances, right? Let's see if the get balance function equally works, okay. So to be able to use the get balance function, what I simply need to do is I need to be able to paste the address here, right? Because this is the get balance function which we use here. It simply says you need to put in an address, and when you put in an address, we're expected to return the amount of that particular address, okay. So if I paste the address right here and I call it, you can see, okay, the transaction went through, okay. At the bottom of the screen right here, if I should put this drop down arrow, we can literally see the amount is 200, right? So it's literally so clear here now that, okay, these functions work. So this is literally how you use mappings, okay. Mappings are literally used for key and value. That means 200 is specific for that unique address which we choose, right? So whenever we call the balances map, right, and we put in a specific address into that map, right, it stores a unique amount, okay. So if that's how you want to be able to use it, then you can always use it as such in Solidity, okay. So this is for single mapping, so we're equally going to be talking about double maps, all right, because it's important for you to know how to use double maps in Solidity as well, because when working, it's quite good to know how to work with double maps as well, right? So with that being said, let's get straight right into it, right? So for double maps, let's say we have a contract, all right? Let's say we have a contract as such. Okay, so for double maps, the pattern still remains the same, all right? But the thing here is you need to learn how to be able to use double keepers, okay. So let's assume we have another contract, okay. Let's see, we have certain contract. Let's just type it up. Let's say contract, then we are going to call it let's say nested mapping, okay. And within this contract, we are going to have a nested map. So if you want to use nested mappings or rather double mappings, right, to initialize it, what you can be able to do is you need to like use mapping, right, and within this you're going to open a parenthesis and you're going to give uint. you want an amount value or an ID value, okay, to be mapped to another mapping. All right, let's see, I'm going to explain what this means in a bit, and we can write it as such address, okay. Within this other map we have an address that's attached to a boolean value, okay, a boolean value which can either be true or false, right? And we can set this to vote. We can set this to vote let's say want to vote the manager, right? Let's say employees want to vote a specific manager at the company. Let's say vote manager, right? It's very important for us to do this. So with this being written, we can equally be able to write another function to be able to set this up, okay? Similarly as we did in the first function, right? So it's a function, and we can just call it vote. Let's say vote registration. Vote registration, and we give it two parameters. We say units. We give it an ID, okay? Well, let's just say ID rather. And we're going to give it a boolean value. Give it comma bool. Let's see, can just call it vote, okay? And yeah, you can just give it an address value, okay? Let's see ADR address. To take the view parameters, and we are going to call it ADR, for example. And this function, we can leave it as external, since we will need this function just externally, okay? You can leave it as external. All right, if you don't understand when to use this specific keywords, you can be able to watch my previous video where I actually explain on variable scopes. All right, it's important for you to know when to be able to use the external keyword, the public, the private, and internal keywords. Okay, it's very important for you to know this. All right, so if you don't know this, you can always check on my previous video, which I actually posted some time ago. All right, so after doing this, to be able to use the double maps, all right, what we can simply do is we can just simply say, okay, since we call it vote manager mapping, okay, vote manager, and since it actually has the array formatting, so we give it the ID. Once you get the vote manager ID, so say ID at the specific address, this address which you got as a parameter, right, should be equal to vote, right? Since we're attaching the vote value, which is a boolean value, okay, this is the boolean value vote. Let me see, underscore vote rather, underscore vote, yeah, which is equal to vote, okay? So we are setting this boolean value which is attached to this address, and this address is attached to this ID, okay? So this ID has a key value as address, okay, and this address has a key value as the vote, right, which is either true or false. It's very important. It's a chain of connection, and the vote value is the key value, is a value, while the address and ID, the address in regards to the ID is equally a value, but the ID literally represents the key, okay? When you get this specific ID and this specific address, you can be able to get this specific vote. You can know which employee actually did the right vote. So we're going to test this out, and we're going to see if it works or not. It's important for us to note this. So similarly as we did with the get vote function, literally we can get a function similarly as to this. Let me just put this here. Let's say we have a function as such. Let me adjust this. Let's say we have a function, okay? Now we have a get vote status, okay? It takes two parameters, unit employee ID, and takes an address of employee to be able to get that status, all right? So here we're setting the status, and now we are getting it from you, okay? And we name it as external because we would like to access this function just externally, not internally, okay? Not within the contract. Likewise, we set it to view because we are trying to get the scope, the variable. We're trying to get a variable which is part of the variable scope, okay? And which is a state variable rather. We're trying to access a state variable. That's why we use the view keyword. We use the external keyword because we are going to be calling the function out of this contract. And since we want to return the boolean value, literally we make sure that we say returns boolean. And since we want to get these unique employees, this ID with this address, okay, is going to return if this person actually voted as true or as false, okay? So let's deploy this contract and see if it works or not, right? So we are going to deploy this contract first. You can deploy it here. So it shows that our contract, let's see, Ctrl S. it shows our contract has been deployed and it has been saved, and then let's deploy it here. So if I deploy this, okay, it has equally been deployed. Let me try to increase the size so you can be able to see what's happening on the console. Okay, so if I come down here to for example, let's see, let me close this one, my contract. Yeah, if I come down here, you can see, okay, you see vote registration. We want to see, let's say, an employee. Let's get an address, because this it takes 3 parameters. It takes an ID. Let's give it an ID of 1 since it's the first address, and let's equally let's give it the value of, let's say this person wants to vote, like this person likes the manager who is there, and the person says, okay, I'm going to choose true. Okay, so you choose it true, and then the address of the employee, let's just go what we have here. Let's copy this, what we have account here, and then we are just going to paste it here and see that's the address. Then we'll transact. Okay, so we can see, okay, the transaction went through, and if we go down here, we can see, okay, status is set true, and if we should go down, we can see it has a vote value of true. All right, those are the input values. Okay, so it actually shows that, okay, the person voted as true. Okay, so let's test it now and see on the vote status. Okay, the get vote status. So when it comes to the get vote status, all right, literally on the Vmix IDE, if I should click this down, it takes 2 parameters. Okay, so I want to know if the employee with ID 1 and with this specific address which we copied, I'm going to paste it here. I want to see if the person voted as true or false. So if I should call this particular parameter, literally we should see the transaction went through. Let's check the status to see. So right here, we can literally see it returns a value of true. Okay, it shows that this person voted as true. All right, so what if the person voted as false? If you use the same parameters and set it to false, you're going to be able to, when you call the get status function, you're going to see the value as false. Okay, so with this being said, that's literally how you're being able to use both single maps and double maps in Solidity. Okay, it's very important, especially when you're trying to store unique values on the blockchain. It's equally very important for you to know how to use this mappings while dealing with Solidity. Right, so if you like this video, please don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe. Okay, with that being said, I look forward to seeing you in the next